Greetings, this is NobleKale for NobleKale.com. I've got here a game called Eerieville Library, and it's an educational game for the Apple IIgs. Well, I'm not sure whether it's 2GS specific, but anyway, moving along. It's from 1993, and it was made by MECC, who basically did a ton of educational games. This isn't one I grew up with. I've played it for about 20 seconds, and I found it pretty interesting, so I thought I would have a quick glance at it. It does take a little bit of time to load. Now, here we have beautiful intro screen. Fantastic. It really does sort of set this interesting tone to it. What I found when I had a quick glance through it was, it's got the standard options. One of the hallmarks that I found from the MECC games that I've kind of skimmed so far is that they have an information screen, and it basically walks you through, these are the different games or different options, and then it actually tells you what skills the game aims to build, because it's an educational game. But rather than include just this sort of information on a piece of paper that's shipped with the game, they've actually built it in, and it's got, sort of Eerieville Library focuses on these skills: identifying setting, main character, finding character traits, story sequence. And I find this really fascinating. And then it's got management options, allow you to, and it basically says, it walks you through all the different education items. And that's because many moons ago, educational software, especially 2GS oriented or 2E stuff, when I grew up, we actually had 2Es in the classroom. There were 2 of them up the front, and you would get allocated time to go play some educational games on the computers. And it was part of the curriculum, and that's what I grew up with. Anyway, and so teachers would need to know how to use the computers. It wasn't a time when students knew computers better than teachers. It was a time when teachers actually had to be able to load games at the very least and sort of know a few ins and outs, and this is sort of like a cheat sheet for them. And it also describes, some special keys like how to quit, Control S for sound on and off, and Control F for making the game faster, and all that sort of stuff. Here's something that's really cute. You may use these colors to adjust your monitor or television, and then it tells you this is orange, this is green, this is blue, and this is violet, in case you had to sort of tune your analog set to make sure that the colors sort of suited it. And we're so lucky in that this is stuff that we don't need to do anymore. But it's cool that it's there. Okay, and a little bit of credits there. So I always find it funny to sort of glance through old games that are more sort of complete and polished and have better bookending, and finding things like that. Things like you had to do joystick calibration. Why? Because you had to know what the extent of the axes was, and you couldn't store anything to permanent memory. There was no flash memory back then. Nothing got retained. It was a complete blank, and you didn't typically quit from games. You simply turned it off and turned it back on again after you swapped the discs. And these are all things that I find just a little bit funny looking back at these old games. Now, it did sort of describe that there's a difference between Calm Day and Weird Day. I'm just going to go with Calm Day. I think that's a bit of difficulty. And there's also a high score list. Anyway, so let's go with Calm Day. Do I want instructions? I've already read the instructions. What it basically consists of is you run around in a map and you pick up notes, and then you read it, and then you answer some questions based upon comprehension of the story that's involved. And then it asks you what section of the library to file it under. So I'm going to skip that, but the instructions are pretty damn comprehensive. It's really good because, again, with educational games, you can't tell whether a kid that sits in front of it has actually played it before. You want to make sure that the teacher can actually play it in case the kid needs to know something. And this is something that MECC did really well. Okay, so it asked me for a name. Boom. this is something that was also pretty typical. It was really good to sort of ask for names and things like that, and they did a lot of personalization. Okay, here we go. This is me in the bottom left-hand corner, running around. Look out! And these white ghosts that just appeared, they will actually move the stories around. Anyway, so I've picked up one. Dear Grandma, I read a story from the sports shelf about the lively gymnast. It started one dark night in a gym. A coach was walking and saw a ghostly gymnast bobbing near a basket of balls. The coach called to the gymnast, who turned and smiled. Then the gymnast disappeared. Since then, nobody walks by the gym at night. Isn't that a scary story? Your favourite grandchild. Now, again, it's just a game, but it's important to remember all the little details here, so hopefully I get it right. Okay, so then we move on to the comprehension section. When does the story take place? One dark night, one bright morning, a rainy afternoon, a stormy evening. I'm pretty sure it's one dark night. Who is the main character? The gymnast, the coach, the quarterback, or grandma? Grandma gets the letter addressed to them, but they're not the main character. The gymnast and the coach both share main character status, I think, but the gymnast disappears. And having done a bit of playing around with this one before, it seems that whoever actually is still around at the end of a ghost story is the main character, TM. I just did hand wavy quotation marks there, so you can imagine that. So I'm going to go with the coach. No, the main character is the person that the story is about. Ask yourself who is acting or speaking the most. Wow, so I am absolutely wrong. Bastard. And then it goes back and it actually highlights it for me. It says, Dear Grandma, I read a story. It started one dark night, so that's correct. Then the gymnast disappeared. Since then, I guess that it's right. So let's go back to the answer menu. Who's the main character? The gymnast. Perfect. Okay, so it's that I'll show you some information, we'll review the information. If you got it wrong, I'll show it back to you again, and then you can review it and come back. So this nice educational feedback loop going on there. Okay, where does the story take place? In a gym. Okay. You've completed all the questions, now use the mail slot to send the paper. Alright. Okay, so I click on the mail slot. Well, I don't actually click, it doesn't want any input. This is about I would have put it onto the ghost story shelf, but the whole thing is a ghost story, so, or at least the whole library is, so it's about sports. Way to go, you've sent the paper to the correct place. Right. Running around. Yeah, so, okay, let's get the next one. Police report November 1st. Several complaints came in last night is the date, about the phantom horse at the old general's house. First, from the attic, the shadow of the horse scared a retired corporal on a midnight stroll. Next, the horse was glowing on the porch and frightened some children. Finally, the horse's hideous whinnying woke a neighbouring captain. Be on the alert for the phantom horse. Okay, so clearly the phantom horse is going to be the main character, and the timing is going to be last night. Okay, who was the main character? A horse. Last night. One night on one Saturday in November. Not entirely sure. I can't remember this. I know it was last night. At midnight? No, the setting of the story includes when the story happens. November 1st. Okay, if it's November 1st, that means that last night was actually in October, and perfect. So that was a little bit more complex than I expected from an educational game. Where does the story take place? Everywhere. It went to several places. The horse went to a couple of different spots. So I think it was in an old Sergeant's Garage? No. Okay, General's House. Again, that's a bit tricky because there were a couple of different places. Okay, now it goes off to somewhere else. It's about horses and military. Okay, perfect. Alright, anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there. So that was Eerieville Library by MECC for the 2GS, and I will catch up with you next time. See ya.